I tell him that when he's, you got.
Yeah, we did with.
Oh, then
Right
I'll
there.
share.
We are now recording, just FYI.
Oh,
And when he retires, he has to get rid of all those, so. You know, it might line up, you know, gain a few pounds, shrink a little shorter, and.
I plan on doing both of those. So when I first started here, you probably met him, Rod Gillespie.
Yeah,
He had just retired and he brought every tie he owned and they were all on a table. It's just unbelievable. I guess over like a career, reflect, and you never get rid of any.
We'll get started here in just a minute. We don't have a quorum as of yet, I don't think. Three.
Okay.
Yeah, one's a work phone, I don't like.
That's we're gonna sign it.
Personal phone.
Sign these folks in.
It shows in there like who joined the meeting. So,
That room. At the middle of the office, you guys use that as like a conference room, meeting room, or do you guys
yeah,
have?
we use it all the time.
and I.
We use it for client meetings. We use it-
That makes you go upstairs.
Tell me we need.
Usually off the carpet.
There's 7.
Yeah.
We're missing.
So he had like 15, I was like, shoot, I gotta go, I'll probably be late.
The door.
We're still missing Shannon, Alex, and Jesse, so we'll give it a couple minutes.
That's the one that's right next to it. This way, so it's a tiny.
Get more.
Different ones from his desk in there. There's like memories.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've been into the probation office like before, and I think it was probably when I was working at the courthouse. And then,
Yeah, there's.
Can you do?
I actually ran into the PD's office and I was like, hey, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go.
That's the.
That could.
Yeah.
There's barely.
You can say this.
Well, that's what it was, I came over here. Your guys. In storage.
I see it every so often.
Cleaned it up the other day.
And how much?
You just had that door open. So you just everything there. And like a week later, someone was in there doing something. And I mean, it looked like, you know, storage firehouse, whatever.
Yeah.
And I had seen this stuff had been delivered and I look in there and like, there it is.
Oh, we're gonna put, you got shoved in that room.
Shoved it, UPS.
Put in the
didn't
blue
have
one?
Anyone at the front desk.
So
They just walked around a little bit and found an open door and set it down.
I've given too many people keys to that room apparently, if they're just leaving it randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, someone was going in and out of there that day, like moving stuff into it or something. And it was like when juvenile hall, when you guys were moving all the stuff. And it was like, what the hell, UPS? We need our paper. So,
Understand, yes, and that's.
The location, yeah, it's like there was so much extra space, people were slobs, you know, there was a room full of just like
History.
books and manuals that are around since like 2003. And then going from that side. Just, there's nothing.
It's kind of like a game that 2 years. Next guy comes in. I found some,
Helping comfortable there, but they're just with the table.
I found some stuff.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. We have a quorum. Hopefully the other folks will show up if they're gonna show up. So let's start out with introductions. I think we know most of the folks up there, but I'm Jeff Goldman, Chief Probation Officer, and then we'll go around the table and then we'll go around the screen because I think there's a few new faces on the screen. So Start going this way.
Yeah, Mike Ving, I'm lieutenant with the sheriff's office. I just took over for Rob Bringoff at the jail, so I'm the new jail lieutenant.
Thanks for coming.
Georgia Arenell, CFAO for the sheriff's office, formerly with the CEO's office. So like my third week, I think.
Welcome.
Carrie Klein, public defender.
Steve Sinclair, adult program manager, probation.
Angie Cosby probation.
All right, start up on the screen. All right, Martin.
Good afternoon or morning, Martin Poltz, Chief Fiscal Officer for the county. Good to see you.
Brendan.
Hi, I'm Brendan Brown, analyst with probation.
All right, Jesselyn.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Yes, my name is Jesselyn. I work in the Nevada County One-Stop Business Career Center. So I represent the adult employment program.
Welcome. All right, Mike Sipnicki.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Sitnicki, probation.
Tanya.
Good morning, I'm Tanya Clark. I am the Court Operations Director for the court.
Ryan.
I'm Ryan Groover. I'm Nevada County's Health and Human Services Director.
Merrill. Can't hear you, Merrill. All right, Merrill works at probation. We'll give him that. Intro. Rachel.
Hi, I'm the Court Services Analyst at the courthouse.
Thank you.
Get on with Project Chart.
For a while, the project card.
All right, thank you. So we have 4 exec committee members, so we have a quorum, I believe, right?
We have 7 total.
Well, we have 4 present.
Yes,
Yeah.
just more than 50% makes a quorum, correct? I'm not used to this stuff, so.
So the first thing we have on the agenda, approval of CCP minutes. I think Linda sent those out.
If
I would move to approve the minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? It's the only discussion, I guess, the mission and vision is not updated relative to the strategic planning mission and vision. So just moving forward, we'll update those. All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes with that caveat, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, public comment is the next thing on the agenda. Normally we have public comment. If we have any individuals, well, any public comment? Hearing none. Moving on to the next item. All right, the main thing for today is the budget discussion and vote. Normally everyone's here for the budget discussion and vote, I would say, but we don't have a whole lot of time, so let's move through that. I think what I was going to say before we have the open kind of discussion was that just a reminder, when we first started the strategic planning process, or when we first started discussing the strategic plan process, I should say, the purpose was to make sure that we were supporting the spirit of the legislation and to be on solid ground during economic swings, to make sure we were being effective relative to the changes in the population that have occurred over the past decade, and to be innovative. I think in that same vein, I just said that, you know, the mission and the vision on the minutes was incorrect. So just a reminder, I mean, we just created this recently. I think it was in May that we had this discussion. So the mission of the CCP is to collaboratively ensure a safe Nevada County by reducing and preventing crime through evidence-based, cost-effective policies and programs. And the guiding principles that we said we believe in or creativity and innovation, collaboration and mutual commitment to the group to improve the system in a fiscally responsible manner, being open, honest, share ideas, and respectful, continuously letting purpose drive strategy. And so with that, I mean, I don't think that we're totally there yet, but I think we're making steps in the right direction that, personally, I think, some folks I emailed some questions and concerns, some were addressed, some I didn't get feedback on. So I don't think, and that's why I said I don't think we're totally there yet, but I do think we're making progress and that we'll continue to make progress down the same path. And I don't think, Steve always hears me say that, it's a process, not an event. And so I think that, we're in that process right now. And that we kind of need all hands on deck to make this happen. And that I think as far as this process, the budgeting process, as we move forward, I think we'll hone in on some things, probably more concrete timelines so we don't stress Angie out too much about getting in the requests and making sure that everything's in order in it relative to the county budget process. And some of the things that I noticed so far, just with generalities about the request, is that on the metrics piece, when we're looking at the data elements that we track, I think there's some stuff missing that we could tell our story a little bit better. And I think part of that, might be developing logic models or looking at positive outcomes and those sorts of things. But I think for most folks, we can count the number of people we served, but we don't have a lot of in-depth across the board for all the programs, in-depth of, okay, we serve this many people, what happened to those folks, and what can we draw on the impact of those programs relative to those folks that we served. And I think that was noticed when we did the strategic plan, hence the idea behind the data committee. I think in talking to Alex, which I don't think he's here, other options for other law enforcement agencies, including Truckee and Nevada City PD and other things that they could be doing, and potentially utilizing some of the funding of the CCP. We talked about some of the drug court stuff last time about trying to, use this group to push some of the stuff that we've worked on as far as drug court goes to make it a little more robust, seeing that this group provides some of that funding for those attorneys relative to those collaborative court functions. Use of the clearinghouse work that we did relative to programming to match the population up to the programming that we potentially have. Who just called in?
Alex Gamelgard.
Yeah, thank you. And using some of that information, that work that we've already done, and supporting that through community-based organizations, and reaching out to them to help partner with them to provide them information and more knowledge around evidence-based practices and things that we can do and support them so that they can provide the services that we need relative to the clients that we have. I think part of that too, I think I reached out to Carrie and Jesse and some other folks about, would it be good idea to even have an evidence-based practices kind of 101 where we can invite county staff or CBOs or a combination thereof. And there was a mixed review, but mostly folks said that would be a good idea. So that's another thing of kind of, I think will help us all speak the same language, because in some of the proposals, there were words like low level offenders and low risk offenders. And some of that language doesn't always match up to whether that's offense specific or risk need specific, and making sure that when we write those proposals that we're on the same page as far as the language goes, so that we're talking about the same folks and that we all mean the same thing when we're talking about those folks. And so, and just looking at how the population's changed over the years, because I think when AB 109 started, there was this idea that the jail would be full, that there'd be high levels of recidivism and those different things, and what we kind of looked at as to what that profile of that population would look like. And over the last decade, that's kind of changed. On average, I think including parole, there's about 19 people, the ADP for the jail. The average daily population is about 19. If you include parole, if you take them out, I think it's around 15. I think the average length of stay it was around 2 months, so there's not huge lengthy stays. There's a handful, I think there's a handful of 1 to 2 year stays occasionally, but there's not those like 10, 15-year sentences that we thought that there would be a decade ago. I mean, there are in some jurisdictions, it just doesn't seem to happen very often here. And just how that impacts us and how we can approach that to make sure that we have the best outcomes that we can have. So with that, I guess I'll let does anyone else have any discussion relative to the budget docs that were sent out? Anything else on the process? Because the process was a little bit different, and I think, like I said, we can refine it, but I think the idea behind that was historically, it seemed like it was, an email. Yeah, I want the same amount of money, okay, we approve it and we move on. And this one, I was trying to make it so it's a little more meaningful and we have a little more attachment to what we're funding and kind of a little more explanation behind what we're funding so that we can report out when we do the Board of Soups reporting and just to the public and everyone else. So.
Jeff, did you send out all of the proposed budgets?
I did. It went to Shannon. I mean, it went to the,
I haven't seen it.
yeah.
I would say going through this process, I know it's been different and much more difficult in just like looking at some stuff. But I do think that I spent a lot of time in kind of, going over ours or us going over ours, that it was, this year just felt like kind of, not that we're going to stay status quo, but doing kind of those things evolved to get the status quo. And for a while, kind of left out things like opportunities of what new you could kind of put in. So I kind of look forward to it next year of actually looking at that. But those conversations probably need to start way earlier than we're actually getting these things in. So we're revising that timeline and sticking to it. That's going to be the biggie because, are we a month over where we were planning on voting? Or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The chat request for the budget docs from Martin. And I think what we did was we sent out the ones that we had with the agenda for the whole CCP, but the most recent one that you sent out was just to the exec team, correct?
I just sent it to Martin. I just forwarded your email.
Okay.
to Martin.
And it'll be in the minutes as well. I mean, it should be in the minutes. I mean, that's how it was last time.
The agenda that I had didn't have any attachments. I didn't see any, so.
I think it was in the minutes from last.
Yeah, it was part of the minutes from last time.
Would you?
Yes, I will. I have someone from the DA's office asking for the link to the meeting, so let me do that.
Is there any other, Ryan?
Yeah, I'll just say, I recognize it's a work in progress. We've done some things differently this year, starting with the strategic plan and then this process. And, but I thought it was great to be able to see those requests and look through them and have some conversations about them, even though we're not exactly to where we want to be. I think it's a big step in the right direction.
I agree. I found this process definitely more challenging than in prior years. But I really found the ability to go through people's requests and really see what they were thinking. It was pretty valuable to me, as well as I had a lot of value in just doing it for my own requests. I know that my office uses different language than probation department. So for me, a low-level offense is a misdemeanor or a low-level felony. I know that when you hear low level, you're thinking risk.
Yeah.
So I think those are the things that going forward we have to think about. But I think, going forward is like next month, we need to start thinking about that versus waiting until December.
And there's a lot of discussion around case management. I think some in the jail, some at social services. And I think part of that is bringing to this group discussions about, and I know Carrie and I had this discussion about defining the populations of which folks are being case managed by whom. So there's not overlap. And then with the idea of CalAIM and other things coming in that we're not, putting too much on something that's already going to be put in place already, with some of the changes that are occurring with that. And some of the spending money on things that we could pull down from those sorts of opportunities. And those are questions that I got from the public were wanting to spend more on treatment. And the response was, well, we did, but then when things change, like drug Medi-Cal and now Calium and those sorts of things that we don't need to, as well as we use other funding sources, like when we were running our CBT groups, which we'll be running again here shortly, we were using SB $678. Not saying we weren't serving AB 109 clients, we were just using different dollars to serve those folks, because that just was a better fit at the time.
I think it's also important when you talk about AB 109 clients, you're specifically talking about AB 109 felony clients. Whereas when I talk about AB 109, I'm also talking about a huge number of misdemeanor clients. Because when AB 109, realigned offenses that used to be felonies into misdemeanors, suddenly my office was charged with doing what probation used to do with those clients. And we've been trying to fill the gap. But it's important to note that AB 109 includes more than just felonies. And in fact, the vast majority of the people are misdemeanors.
Yeah, so I mean, AB 109 clients today, I think there's about 80 total if you have the PRCS and the 1170s total. And then altogether, if you include standard probation, close to 400. So yeah, so they're a smaller portion of that larger group, but we use these funds to make sure that they don't end up, in that pool to a certain extent. That today's probationers don't become tomorrow's AB 109 clients.
Well,
Put that on a t-shirt.
Make a little extra money for the CCP, but I mean, I think it's should be said, and again, is that all these different as legislation changes and Prop 47, all those are misdemeanors, and then there is this kind of domino effect, and that's why this strategic planning amongst this group of stakeholders is so important to actually look at those things, system versus our population, how that's affecting us and what's happening over at the public defender's office where you guys are getting, there's gaps, and that's why this is important.
All right, any other discussion on this process? All right, so we're missing some key folks. Do we want to take a vote? I mean, ready? All right. All right, so do we want to do it individually or as a group as far as all of the funding goes? Do we want to address each one individually, or that take too long, or how do we want to do it? Ryan looks like he's about ready to unmute, but I can't tell. Nope. Not
I
gonna
wasn't
do it.
planning to unmute. Thank you.
You want to do it by department or no, just all at once, the whole budget? Okay. All right. So is everyone, well, I guess someone needs to make a motion relative to,
I said move that we vote on the budget.
can I get a second?
I second.
Tanya beat Ryan. Any discussion? And so just to clarify, there are a total, do you want to pull up Angie's gonna share a screen that shows all the requests. So we know exactly what we're voting on relative to the revenue.
I can remember how we use Teams. Been used every day for the last 10. Okay. I'll make it bigger, don't worry. Quick explanation before we talk about that.
Sure.
So, yeah. So this is, I just plugged what the requests were into what we've used as our general format for the last few years. What you're seeing up top here is the revenue estimates. The 22-23 is where we look like we're, going to be ending this year, or, what we're looking at for this year. And then the 23-24 are revenue estimates based on the governor's budget proposal that just came out. So that's where these numbers are coming from. This is the carryover reserve, this 4.03 million here from 22-23, assuming the assumption with 22-23 that I have in here is just that we're going to spend everything we budgeted for. It's just kind of the easiest assumption at this point in time for us to go with. So assuming that, this is where we would land if we spent everything we budgeted for this year and approved and spent all of the budget requests that have been submitted so far. That make sense?
Yes.
The total is 3.4 and estimated is what up top?
3.385. So if you look at the contingency available on the bottom line,
Drops.
we'd be using a tiny amount of fund balance this year. Everything were to go exactly as we.
I think the other thing to look at is that if you notice on the top, the estimated, scroll back.
Okay.
The estimated growth is way down. That's one thing I don't think we can count on for the next handful of years. So it's almost down to nothing. So
Yeah, I mean, there's very good, that's obviously an estimate. So there's always a very good possibility of that being no growth this year.
okay, so looking at that, can you scroll over so we can see
Yeah,
that?
sorry.
Thanks. So we have the probation department expense, treatment expense, Grass Valley PD, public defender, district attorney, Health and Human Services, Sheriff's Department, and no capital expense. So most of it stayed pretty status quo. Other than slightly, I mean, public defenders went up because I think covering the PSC, the
yes.
Personal Services Coordinator.
Yes.
That you just talked about briefly. All right, any other discussion before we have a vote? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Stop sharing now so that I can take. notes if that's
Any
okay.
opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Budget passes. All right, next thing on the agenda is the data committee. So some folks had sent me names, and I might not have them all written down here. So I have someone from Grass Valley PD. Ryan, I wrote down Andy, was that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Sheriff's Office, I have Leslie written down. Okay.
Leslie Lessing? Williams?
My email, I think that's correct.
Let's see,
I'll make sure.
from the courts, I have Rachel.
Yes.
And I don't think I have anyone for the DA's office.
I'm here.
As far as who would you like on our, the data committee for the CCP, like your analyst?
Analyst, probably Denise.
Thanks, Harlan. Thank you. And then, so the other question with the data committee, I've had a request.
And then you're missing me. It'll be me to start, but it's going to move to someone else when they come back from the
Well, I know that you'd emailed me. You just hadn't given me a name.
Having, from,
Yeah. And then Brendan for probation. And then the other question that I had that I was gonna pose to the group is we've had a request from the public to participate in that data committee. And the only concern I have before we know actually what kind of data format that there's gonna be is that some of that might be information that's not, might be core information or different things that might not be privy to the public. So my take at this point is for that group to kind of form and to and for this group to kind of decide what elements that we're going to have them looking at, discuss, and then decide whether that's something that's feasible for the public to be able to participate. Not saying that it wouldn't aggregate it and report out in this group so that the public could have feedback and comment and do those sorts of things, and make that de-identified information public. But the majority of the folks in that group are able to look at things that the public wouldn't necessarily be able to look at. So does that make sense? Any other conversation on that? Setting up the next meeting. So we discussed last time the idea of, we're having exec meetings quarterly, and we used to have exec and kind of a general CCP meeting, which it seems like more people have been attending lately. So I think what I was going to propose is that in March, we schedule another meeting for March, and we make it just kind of a split meeting during the time frame of a general meeting and then an exec meeting, and schedule it for half and half of the time. Does that make sense? Does that work for everybody? And then hopefully in February or sometime before March, the data committee can meet and then have some information to kind of report out for March. And I'll have, maybe Brendan can take lead on that to kind of feed information that we discussed and some of those metrics that we discussed at the strategic planning session for them to be able to meet and start wrapping their heads around what that committee looks like and what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while, so that was what I was kind of thinking, is there enough notes out of those meetings or those strategic planning meetings where they would have at least a head start on what they're trying to accomplish?
I think so. And then part of it was just building the framework and each person bringing the information that they're currently collecting to the party to be able to say like, okay, sheriff's department's already collecting this, probation's already collecting this. And then being able to put that together to see what pieces are missing. So. Any other questions, comments on that? All right. Innovation Fund update. I don't think there is an update yet.
No, I'm working with the CEO's office to try and figure out who we need to have be a part of that conversation. So Martin, I'll reach back out to you to just make sure that we've got everybody who needs to be involved in that.
All right, any questions on that? All right, so the next thing was strategic plan review commitment. We've had that on the last few times. And I think the biggest thing for that now and the things that we have kind of hanging out there are the data pieces of that. So, and some of those outreach pieces that we're continuing to do. Because that was one of the entire goals of being data-driven in decision-making and evaluating outcomes. And all the objectives associated with that kind of have to do with getting that group going. The community participation and outreach. I know each one of us has kind of talked about taking a piece of that on. So we'll discuss that more next time. And some of the other stuff as far as ensuring a safe Nevada County by reducing preventing crime also has to do with setting up some of those data work group pieces, as well as the law enforcement work group, which I know Alex, he's still on the phone. You haven't set a date yet, right? You've got the folks.
No, I haven't, but I'll get in touch with you because what I wanted to do is have you or somebody come in and give a brief to the more of the line level folks that'll be on that whole committee, just so they can kind of understand more about exactly what the CCP is and how we can then get them started on their info sharing in that regard.
Okay, well, let me know. Primary care diversion piece, I think that's moving forward. I think a meeting's been set.
Yeah, just, I know that Susan and Judge Thompson, I think Cambria has been meeting, but I'm gonna jump in at the next meeting set for the, well, judge isn't confirmed yet, but I think the 30th is the next meeting for that.
Okay. All right. Next thing was public and community-based organization outreach, which we just talked about. We're going to continue to try to reach out to more CBOs. And like I said, I think one kind of, maybe, I mean, we can expand this beyond the normal folks, but I think one piece of that, like I said earlier, was that EBP 101 kind of training or class. I mean, I think it'd be good to invite all the CBOs to that, kind of make those connections and a way, kind of an entry point to the CCP, as well as the innovation funds piece in the budgeting process, as far as coming up with a way again for CBOs to make requests or to explore new creative options to make requests to the CCP. Because as Angie showed up on the screen, I mean, we do have a $4 million fund balance as well, which we can use some of that for potentially for innovative projects that CBOs might want to do, or training or different things.
Once the innovation fund is set up, that's another piece I think that would be interesting.
All right, any questions, concerns, comments about that? No, all right. Lastly, again, we have public comment. Let's see. Nothing. Anything you guys want to share that you guys are doing?
Well, that innovation fund sounds fascinating.
Yeah. I saw that you guys had a retreat up by my house recently.
A parliamentary retreat. 26 people in attendance. We had Scott Covert from the Change Company come. We also had Tracy Oates. She was suicide prevention training. From Oregon. And yeah, it was overnight, 3 days, 2 nights. And yeah, it was really exciting to gather our peer mentors together, train them on the motivational interviewing, the courage to change materials. This week, we're having interviews for peer mentor coordinators. So we're building infrastructure so we can have somebody oversee that volunteer peer mentor group of volunteers. So it was a great success, and we're looking forward to great things this year.
That's great. Expansion. Yeah. Into Placer, right?
Yeah, we'll be expanding into Placer. We'll hope to start, as soon as we get a signed contract from BSCC. So we take a very conservative approach where we don't want to expand funds till they sign their contract and send it back. So we're doing some preliminary volunteer work down in Placer, and this grant, or New Start grant, where we serve parolees and those who have a prison prior, will just roll over in March. So it'll be seamless for Nevada County.
That's great. Thanks. All right, anything else before we close out? Nothing. All right. Can I get a motion to end the meeting?
So moved.
All right, I'll second it. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Yeah. All right, well, thanks. Thanks, everybody.